We are back, tag with the quick entrance. It's been a very interesting week 2. I think everything we've learned from week 1 got chucked out the window, and it's whatever happened bad on week 1 seems to happen good on week 2. It's been a great week for me. Bish did all right, very well with the bets. Tag's fantasy team, you're winning in fantasy, aren't you, Tag, this week?
No, don't think so.
I've just made that up.
I'm going on too, mate. I'm not looking good.
Kamara and Jefferson, aren't you? I think
I've played a ridiculous team this week with
I've seen that yet. Well, sorry, Tag, about that. I didn't mean to rub that in nice and early, didn't interesting week, lads. We'll get stuck in. But first off, how are you both?
Tag, how are you?
I'm all right, mate. I'm a bit rattled this morning after the bets didn't go well. The fantasy team is on the brink in a few other fantasy leagues. It's good to have NFL back, but what's brought that is a lot of stress with it. And I'm a bit of a manager on the ropes at the minute, so I'm going to regroup. I'm going to spend a few hours this afternoon planning how I can turn it round.
Yeah, I think Bassie's done me as well, so I think I'm going to go 1-1. So again, I'm looking at what I can tinker with. I'm looking for a flex option. I think maybe another wide receiver. But yeah, I think it's been a good week too. Maybe too many 6 o'clock games. I think 10 games at 6 o'clock, a lot to keep up with. But yeah, it's good to be in the full swing of things, I think. And like you said, week 1 was a bit of a warm up, but week 2 definitely we saw a lot more action of what we sort of anticipated would unfold.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think 10 games too many. I was watching some and I thought, oh no, my fantasy team must be doing quite bad. And then I'd load up the app again and I was doing quite well. But I think there were that much action that unless there were big touchdown plays, because there were quite a few of them, unless there were big, massive plays, they weren't getting in on the red zone show. So it were quite tough to follow, especially if your fantasy team's not based around these big touchdown scores and just trickling along. You didn't see much of you wouldn't see much of your own team like I didn't. I didn't see many of my players, but then I think some others got loads of action. So yeah, interesting one, Bish. But yeah, I'm with you. Too many, I think. Nice 7 or 8, and you can at least follow your players a bit more closely. We'll get into it, lads. Well, it's Monday. It's the new segment. Obviously, if you followed week 1, we had a good laugh last week. It's now week 2. I'm sure Bish has got another crazy take. Tag's new to this segment, so he's got to come with a bang. It's Overreaction Monday, lads. Tag, I'll let you start off.
Overreaction Monday. So is this where we're going to chuck out just a bit of a statement on a player or something to begin with before we roll into getting serious?
Yeah.
Mine's a bit not too overreacted because obviously we've seen it, but I'm going to say that Brock Bowers of the Raiders is going to finish tight end number 1 overall this year. I've seen enough in 2 weeks to get behind the hype. I've seen the performance of other tight ends around him, and I'm going to say whoever took Bowers, you've done well because he's going to be number 1 come the end of the year.
It's a good call. I've seen bits of the Baltimore game. I've not watched it and seen most of it, but his stat line is very impressive. Obviously, a weapon coming in. Everyone expected him to do really well, and it seems, week 1, week 2, very early on in his rookie career, he's hit the ground running. So Gardner Minshew is finding him.
Well, I think also in it that there's only 2. I think he was one of the only 2 viable options on the team. The running back situation's quite dire. And then wide receiver wise, there's only one man, and it's Devontae. And then as soon as Devontae gets double teamed, Gardner looks to Brock Bowers, and that's his 2. And then from there, he checks it down or he runs himself. To be fair to him, there's not much else going on in the offense. It's a very simple one, but effective when you've got Devontae out there doing what he does, and then obviously Brock Bowers is. Oh yeah, I think you'll be close, Tag. To be honest, like I said, especially with the state of all the other, it's like the league's decided to. It's like all the defensive coordinators have decided to start making sure tight ends don't have massive ears for some reason and really lock down on the position. Maybe with it doing so well the past couple, but yeah, I don't think you're far off.
I just think the way Bauer moves, the size of him, the shape of him reminds me of Kelsey a few years ago. I watched that game intensely yesterday due to obviously one of the main bets being involved on the Ravens, and it was a frustration seeing every completion to Bowers, but just the way he moved and got himself open so easily, and the way he glided and his hands looked so safe every time. And obviously I've looked back and seen him from week one and paid a bit more attention now, and I just think he's that sort of safety blanket already for Minshew when, like you say, when Devontae's doubled up. So I really like it. I really like what he's bringing and giving, scoring good points already. So that's me. Yeah, done. Bowers in.
Bish, what's yours?
Mine is Nico Collins to finish as a top 3 fantasy wide receiver this year. And you know, from even our previews, our rankings, you know, we all tag you were big on Diggs, you know, Tank Dell. How does 3 fit into 1? Who's the number 1 man? And I think it's Nico Collins. In 2 games, he's had 18 targets, 14 receptions, and over 250 yards with a touchdown as well late last night. So I think it's sort of showing that Nico Collins is the main man. And I think in that high-powered offense, CJ Stroud, you know, he looks really good again in his second year. So I just think the points will keep coming for him.
Like it, not so big of an overreaction, that, Bish. I'd say that's a fair statement based on what we've seen so far.
Yeah, you said that last week as well, Joe. Come on.
Give us a big one, because that's a fair analytical statement coming from you. I think
it is. I would say it is a big call, I think, because obviously the wide receiver depth is so big, and you've seen obviously Justin Jefferson making the plays last night, CeeDee Lamb doing what he's doing still, and other wide receivers and around like your Marvis Harrison Jr. and people like that. But I think it's a pretty fair call. They've got that many mouths to feed in Texans. It's hard to double team any of them. And Nico Collins is a big guy. He's probably their tallest wide receiver. Athletically looks the best. You can see why he's been so successful so far.
Yeah, especially I've got Tank Dell in one of my other fantasy leagues, and they're just using him as I think a 2020 Curtis Samuel at Washington, where he's just a gadget player at the moment now. One big ball, a load behind the scrimmage line. They're giving him some carries out of the backfield. So yeah, no, as a Tank Dell owner, I'm panicking because it looks like it's all Nico and then Diggs on the shorter routes, getting the easy catches. So yeah, I think you're. I'm not calling that an overreaction, Bish. I'm being harsh on you there. I think that's a very fair, good statement. I've got an overreaction for you, lads, as last year. I think Minnesota Vikings win the NFC North. I think.
Yeah, knowing how they've started, you know, I think that's a yeah.
I think obviously
beginning of the season that'd be a massive call. Yeah, I agree with you, but they look to be hitting a groove. The defense seems pretty good. I think there's clips of Purdy coming off the field saying to the defensive coordinator, you know, your schemes that you come up with are crazy. You know, it's just like, and Sam Darnold seems to be growing in confidence. So, yeah, they're definitely a front runner, I think.
Yeah, well, I see it, but I can't see him getting past your team, Joe. I think I still like Green Bay to win that division. The way they played last night with probably the worst starting QB in the league after Bo Nix. Yeah, Malik Willis is. I'm not a fan of his, and they still got a win against a good Colts team. I still think the Colts look pretty good, and they still got the win. I think obviously they come close to beating the Eagles in Brazil. A lot went into that game, and the Eagles could be the real deal this year. We don't really know. I think we're going to see some more answers of that on Monday Night Football when they play the Falcons. But I think Green Bay, they might only been missing Love for 3 to 4 weeks. I think if they get another 1 or 2 wins in that time till Love's back, I like what Green Bay bringing. I loved watching them last night. So it is a bit of an overreaction. I think it's not as big as what you might think it'd be. Obviously, the Lions Goff looked a bit like his old Goff last night, so maybe a bit risky there. But if I was putting my money on one team in that division personally, it'd be Green Bay still.
Yeah, that's why it's overreaction. You've got Lions and Packers still there. But as long as Justin Jefferson isn't out for a long time, obviously come off. All reports are that it's not a long termer, but we'll save that for a minute. But yeah, I think as long as he's not out for a long time, I think the Vikings are just they're too good on offense. I love Darnold. I've always liked Darnold. You can look back on the previous years. I've always actually given him support. And he's finally found a team that he can thrive on with actually capable wide receivers for once. So, yeah, I've got a feeling it's going to be a good year in Minnesota. Next one, lads, based on that, actually a good segue, the injury report. Bish, who's your injured player?
I'm going to throw up straight away, and an obvious one really, Tua Tagovailoa. Obviously, that another concussion for Tua on Thursday night against the Bills, and a pretty standard tackle really. But you know, as it's sports, you sort of know the more head knocks you take, the easier it gets to to get concussed. So it's pretty concerning for fantasy. Obviously, if you've got him, I had him in a league. I've sort of stacked him with Tyreek Hill. Obviously, that nullifies pretty much all the weapons on that team, which is massive. I think it's going to be quite an ongoing long-term thing in terms of I don't think he'll be back for a while, just in terms of the concussion protocol, the number of head knocks he's had, and then obviously you're hearing all the noise from the outside of people suggesting he should be, looking to retire and things like that. So I think you definitely need to look what's out there and try and pick someone up. Skylar Thompson will probably come in if they don't sign a veteran. I think Ryan Tannehill's still available. That could be an interesting one. But yeah, I think they're going to need some reinforcements at that quarterback spot. And if you're a tour owner or a Miami player owner on offense, I think it's a bit worrying times at the minute.
Yeah, apparently he's come out and said he's definitely not retiring, hasn't he? I think all reports are saying he doesn't want to retire, obviously, and has no plans to. But like I said, he's seeing the specialist soon, so that comes back bad, Bish. It could be a very, very sad NFL story.
Yeah, it's obviously I've come from a sport. What's in the news about the head knocks recently as well. It's just frustration because I don't. From his previous records, the way he's gone into the play and why he's not slid feet first, it just blows my mind why he's going in head first there. I know it's easy to say now, but it's just a frustration because obviously it wouldn't have happened if he would have just led with his feet like these QBs are taught at the high level. So it's a frustrating one to see, especially like I said, for his health. But you fantasy users as well who've got him, I've got him in another league now, and obviously, I'm going to be taking notice of our own waiver report to see who I'm bringing in to replace him. But yeah, it's a tough one. You just obviously want him to heal up, and the good thing is they are protected. These players you've seen in the news about how they have to honour the 130 odd million is due still if he does retire and stuff like that. So it's nice to know that they're looked after if they do have to retire for this sort of injury.
On hopefully a bit of a lighter note, Tag, who's your injured player?
Yeah, so on my injured player, I'm going to have to go because it's affecting me in the punt league, CMC. It's just a bit of a question mark. He's got this Achilles tendonitis. It's one where you can't really risk it because if your Achilles goes and your season's done. Well, we say that, but obviously we saw Cam Akers with the Rams get back very quick from it, but obviously, CMC is a bit older than him, and he does a hell of a lot more workload than what Cam Akers does. So, yeah, it's a bit of frustration one with CMC. We don't know where we stand with him. There's not really a massive time span on it. You'd think the better Niners do, the more they won't rush him. But after the loss last night, depending on how the next few results go, it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. It's obviously an injury you can't risk, and it's I'm guessing you train, you rehab. It just all goes how it feels, and we aren't going to really know at the minute whether it's 2 weeks or 10 weeks. And if you're a fantasy owner of him like me, he's mad because he drops to 4-5 in our league, and I think, bloody hell, I've got him here. And like I say, if I had one of the first couple of picks, I wouldn't have took him. But when he falls to 4 or 5, you've got to take him. But then, obviously, I'm dealing with the consequences of that now.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that. Yeah, there's not really, like you said, loads to say, is there? We're really unknown, and hopefully he comes back for you, CMC owners. And I never like it when the first round pick goes, without being harsh, you tag, unless you do exceptionally well on the waiver wire or pick up a Kyron Williams from last year. You're kind of out of the running of winning the thing, aren't you? When your top number one option's not there, and it's somewhat unfortunate, like an injury that's especially unknown, that you can't really do much about it. You've got to sit tight. So yeah, feel bad for you, CMC owner.
Yeah, look, the only one good thing I did was when there was a bit of speculation going into the first game, I took Mason off the waiver, not off the waiver wire, but took him off free agent straight away, put him straight in on my bench, because obviously he'd see that workload. Look, it's paid off in the fact of his scoring well, Mason, but obviously not scoring as much as what CMC would, but it sort of softened the blow, the fact that I got Mason before anyone else did. If I wouldn't have got him and someone else would have got him, it would be probably a double whammy for me.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, with him being an older running back, calf injuries, Achilles injuries, there's not much blood flow around that spot. It's for a team like 49ers, they probably will, sort of side on caution, which is obviously no good for us fantasy players. So personally, I think it could be a longer than shorter than most expect, really. So, they've got the playoffs to think about. Even if they don't win the division, which I still think they're capable of doing, they'll definitely get a wild card spot. So, they'll be thinking of the playoff run and sort of bringing him back, trying to get him as fresh as possible for later on in the year.
And my one, lads, quickly, is if you have him lined up on your team, you're definitely not happy. In the preseason warm up, in the pre-game warm up, Evan Engram went down injured. Quite hard to posture, especially if you're busy from what our time would be 5:30 till 6 o'clock. You've had an absolute unlucky nightmare. Luckily, the person who I faced in the league had him. Bruno couldn't make a quick enough change, and sadly sat there in his tight end spot with 0 points. There's no news on how long it will be. It's unlikely he'll be fit for next week, and especially with that he didn't have a big week one. I think drafting Evan Engram, you're probably devastated. It was meant to be a big year. There's no options on that Jacksonville Jaguars wide receiver court, especially with someone who we're probably going to mention later having another shocking week. They need options, and Evan Engram were meant to be one of the top ones. He's out. Bad for Jacksonville. Bad for Evan Engram owners. Again, not much positivity coming out of this one because they've lost to Cleveland Browns. So it don't really get much worse than that this season.
Could have been the Giants, I suppose.
Could have been the Giants or the Panthers, couldn't it? To be fair, there's two.
Broncos.
But, we'll get into it then, lads. Fantasy, more again. I feel bad because we just go from negativity to negativity. The fantasy flops. Bish, you give us your one first.
My flop, and I'm going to go with a wide receiver from the game you just spoke about. It's the Browns wide receiver, Amari Cooper. And this is probably on the back of last week as well. Last week was another poor points display, and this week only 2.6 points. I had him sat there in my lineup thinking Deshaun would get it together and get some points against this Jags secondary, but it wasn't to be. Only 3 catches on 8 targets and only 11 yards. So that's 2 weeks in a row now. I've struggled sticking him in my lineup. And I'm not really sure what to do with him, if I'm honest. He's one of those sort of players that, as we saw last year with Joe Flacco, if you can get the ball to him, he'll make things happen. But it seems at the minute, wherever Deshaun Watson's in there, he's not having a good time. That offensive line isn't maybe getting those pass protection schemes right, and he's struggling at the minute. So at the minute, it's I'm going to have to take him out of my lineup and just wait for that big game and see if I can get some more confidence in him.
Yeah, you're probably praying that they'll posture away from Deshaun Watson and get get a new quarterback in quick.
Well, we've got Jameis Winston sitting there, and we all know famous Jameis. He throws that ball. So, if that quarterback change comes, he's straight back in my lineup, definitely.
Like it. I'll give you my one quick. It is Rachaad White of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, someone who obviously they were calling made a workhorse 3-down back at one point. It's definitely not the case. Obviously, we're in week 2 now. Definitely not the case. He's ranked 30th in the position. He had 10 attacking opportunities. He only made 18 yards. Got 2.8 fantasy points. I think if you've drafted him, as I said, you're devastated, and especially with how good the person I picked up on the waiver wire, in another team would be Bucky Irving, who's actually outrunning him each week. Had more yards in the last 2 weeks than Rachaad White. Rachaad White's doing better on the receiving end, which is good for fantasy. But I think overall, you're devastated as a White owner. You drafted him early, think he'd be a 3-horse back, and it's going to be a complete timeshare. And looks like a very equal one, with White getting more of the receiving game goal line. So he's going to go from an RB1/2 to a flex play in a good matchup now. So yeah, I think Rachaad White, week 2 owners, devastated.
Baker looks a lot more confident now as well. Again, built on last year, he's throwing the ball a lot, and then he likes to run himself a bit, so he's getting starved a bit. It's not looking too pretty for the White owners. Luckily, I've not really took him this year, but I did have him last year, so I feel like I'm dodging a bit of a bullet there.
I've been keen on Bucky Irving, and I think he takes that job. I think he's much more efficient with the ball. White was a lot of volume last year, and I think that's. I've been picking him up, just waiting, stashing him on my bench in a few leagues. I think he takes over towards the second half of the season.
Yeah. Tag, who's your fantasy flop?
Well, this show's going to be pretty tight end themed for me, it looks like. And my biggest flop I'm going to go with is Travis Kelce. No surprise there. Obviously, the sort of tight end who we normally take in the first round, maybe second round, and expecting to be tight end number 1. He got 1.1 points. Last week, he only got just over 4 points. If you took Kelce early in the fantasy, you're fuming. I don't know what's going on there. I watched the Chiefs, quite a lot of Chiefs game last night. Obviously, Mahomes is still looking like Mahomes, but Rice is getting a lot. Waiver is getting a lot. Is it a case we say this quote a lot, like too many mouths to feed? But is that it? I mean, Kelce seemed to be getting a lot of action on stage with Swifty on tour. Is he still on tour and still got his dancing shoes on? Not getting open as much. It just looks like, and obviously he's aging. He's looking a bit slower. It's a frustration for Kelce owners. I do have him in one league. Very thankful I didn't take him in the punt. But yeah, tight end wise, just while we're on it, you've got Laporta there as well. Another flop, 2.3 points. Unless you add Bowers, who's going to be one of my stars and someone I spoke about being the best this year, the tight ends are lacking a bit. I mean, Pitts looked good last week. He plays Monday Night Football. But yeah, Kelce just don't look like he's. It looks like he's still on the old tour bus having fun.
He does. I think with Kansas City, obviously, it's just Rashee Rice, isn't he? I think Rashee Rice just ate into that workload. He did have a deep ball catch, Rice, but I think he's more of that mid-range wide receiver who hits. Obviously, they're calling him the slant man, aren't they? Who comes in on the slants, and he's just getting too much action. He's too good, and I think he's getting too open for Mahomes to ignore him and go to Kelce now. And then you've got your deep threat in Worthy. You've got your running back going well. I just don't think there's as big of a need for Kelce, especially like you said in his older age, to have to dominate the ball like he did when they didn't have any other options really.
He had one good, probably 20-plus yard reception and run, but he got pulled back for holding. But yeah, again, I'm with you boys. I just think it's that age. I think he'll still be important to him towards the back end of the season, in the big games. But obviously for us fantasy guys, I think it's going to be a struggle week to week.
Bish, you've got one more flop for us, haven't you?
Yeah, another wide receiver for me. I'm going with Christian Kirk, and again, it's from the same Jags Browns matchup. And Christian Kirk sort of seen as a wide receiver one now that Calvin Ridley's gone. Or they did bring in Gabe Davis, but not even 1 point, 0.4 points, one catch for -1 yards. So yeah, it wasn't great out there. And actually, the rookie Brian Thomas has come in, and it looks to have supplanted him as a major option for Trevor Lawrence there. So yeah, Christian Kirk owners, not a great week for you. Well, terrible week to be honest, but yeah, hopefully you can bounce back.
Yeah, I'll have one last one, and I think it's game script wise. It's probably harsh putting him in here. I'm going Zeke. Yeah, obviously Ezekiel Elliott at Dallas. Probably more reason I just wanted to talk about the game. New Orleans absolutely tanked. Absolutely tanked Dallas unbelievably. Derek Carr's been the king of the season so far. MVP candidate, I think, at the moment. That should have been probably my overreaction, that Derek Carr might win MVP. He's been looking like he's got a chance. And I think just for people who may be new watching us this year, I know we've got a few new followers, probably my friends and that who have been messaging me saying I've been watching your videos. If you're doing fantasy, don't read too much into when the game scripts like this. Obviously, if a team does absolutely wipe out its opponent, running backs become, especially on the losing team, running backs just become totally useless. Don't read into it. Don't think Zeke's not getting his time. Don't think Zeke's not going to get the touchdowns. Bad game script. I think for new owners, you've just got to learn to take these days on the chin, sadly, and move on as quick as possible, and just forget the score line and just move on to the next week and hope it's a better game script and a better matchup for him.
Yeah, Zeke's value is his touchdowns. I think his touchdown poaching, and if you're on the back end of a scoreline like that, it's going to be a poor day.
Right, positive section, lads. Bish's breakouts. Bish, as it's called, as it's named after you. You get first go. Who's your top player of the week?
My top player of the week, and it's a running back. It's got to be Alvin Kamara. Fresh off a 4-touchdown game. It's absolutely killed it, really. Cast your minds back a few years now. He actually won people leagues. On Christmas Day, he scored 6 touchdowns in one game on Christmas Day. And it really, now fast forward into last night, he looked pretty much, as that player, a lot older now in age, but again, he's used very much. Teams are using these sort of pass catching running backs now as a Christian McCaffrey. They can run the ball, they can catch the ball. They're very shifty in contact, and he just had an absolute field day against that Cowboys defense. So yeah, 4 touchdowns. If you had him, you'd be struggling not to win your week, if I'm honest. 43 points in the punt. So yeah, Alvin Kamara.
I think quickly, I'll just say it's nice to see. I think NFL's a league where older players get wrote off very, very quickly, and they quickly get out of the league, whether they've still got things to offer or not. It's all about what's new, who's the new rookie coming through. So it is nice to see a team sticking with obviously a running back who did seem like he was on the back end of his career, come back and give him his chance, and now he's rewarding them unbelievably with 2 amazing game weeks so far.
Not what time to hear though.
No, I say I was one playing against him, so yeah, that's me lost.
Give us your player of the week.
My player of the week. I have obviously mentioned Bowers quite a lot. Tight end, obviously killing it. Another 14.3 points, but I'll go with my player of the week, Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver at the Cardinals, 27 points. Quite a lot made, quite a lot of people writing off after 1 week because he had 1 catch for, I think it was for 4 yards or something like that. But all the hype behind him was real coming out of college. And you saw that last night. Carla couldn't miss him. And he's so elusive. He already seems to have that relationship with him the way he got open when Carla was on the run and the move. he just looked untouchable that first quarter. Unbelievable he was, and just a fantasy godsend. For anyone who stuck by him, there'll be a few there with him sat on the bench last night and absolutely devastated after an overreaction from week one. But last night, 27 points, unbelievable performance. And if you got him in fantasy, you're laughing.
Yeah, he looks like a smart player, like you said, from that scramble there. Just found the space, sat there and just got the ball. And just a bit of advice for anyone. If you've got a wide receiver coming up against the Rams, play him.
The Rams are struggling, mate.
That's sad. That's sad, Bish, coming from your own team. That's sad.
Yeah, I'm here to win leagues.
I'll take you through my play of the week, and it's someone who comically I've got sat on my bench, and he shouldn't be on my bench. It's DK Metcalf. I think you'll, disgusting. Wow. Disgusting choice. Disgusting decision.
You're betting him as well.
Yeah. It made no sense. I don't know what I did. I've outfought myself. Luckily, I kind of got away with it. Zach Charbonnet and Zay Flowers were my two. Was my flex and my other wide receiver starting so far. So they did all right. Devonta Smith still to go with, luckily, AJ Brown injured. So I might have got away with murder there. But yeah, DK, 24 points, 10 receptions, 14 targets, 129 yards, 1 touchdown. He went nuclear. Just played unbelievable. I overread his matchup. I thought, you know what, the New England cornerbacks are very highly rated. I think my lesson now is, unless it's PS2, who was notoriously, to be fair, being able to shut down Metcalf throughout his whole career so far, unless it's PS2, playing Metcalf, he's got the big plays in him. Don't make that same mistake again. I'm devastated. I think if I did play Metcalf, I would have had my matchup done and dusted, but I've got to go into my Monday Night Football with it still up for grabs. So, a bit sad on that one, but yeah, DK, well done, and I've learnt my lesson. Never going to drop you again. Who's next, lads? Who wants to go next?
I'll drop in another rookie wide receiver then, following on from Harrison, and I'll throw in Malik Neighbours out there. You know, very frustrating last week. Obviously, we know the state of the New York Giants team is very struggling. You know, I think it came out last week, Daniel Jones has thrown more touchdowns to opposing players than his own players since he signed his new contract. But Malik Neighbours had a great game. Probably one drop on the 4th down late on, which couldn't get him in field goal range, but just short of 24 points, 1 touchdown and 127 yards. So he's looking exciting. I've got shades of sort of OBJ there in New York, and hopefully you can lift them and get some points for him, because they certainly need some exciting headline grabbing sort of plays and things to talk about in New York at the minute.
Yeah, Neighbours was in one of my other leagues. I got him sat on the bench in a game what is winnable and maybe be done and dusted the same. But yeah, Neighbours obviously is probably going to be Daniel Jones's guy, and he's going to rely on him a lot more as well. And the fact of Singletary had a bit of a better game, and scored okay, but obviously no Barkley. So you think Neighbours is sort of a guy who needs to be starting in your teams now going forward?
Daniel Jones, bad week, talking about getting dropped, and he's gone, Malik Neighbours, please save me, and only passed it to Malik Neighbours the whole game. So yeah, that's about as much as Daniel Jones has got to worry about the next couple of weeks. My other one, lads, I'll quickly dive in. My other one is Devontae Adams. I think he deserves a shout out. Like we said, with Minshew just throwing the ball to him, 9 receptions on 12 attempts, 110 yards and a touchdown. Just looked phenomenal out there. Looked like he did that toe touch catch that was just freakish. I think that you played wide receiver your whole life and a phenomenality. It's just impossible to do what he did. Keep his balance, keep his composure. Showing the shades of obviously what we saw at Green Bay. So I think Devontae proved himself as a starter, and I think Minshew's getting that connection with him now where I think this will be a week-on-week event because I don't think there's many, if any, cornerbacks that can stop Devontae when he's playing like this.
No, he's world class, and we know that. And his question mark going into this year was Minshew and who's throwing him the ball. But we saw a bit last night with Justin Jefferson. When you're a top-level wide receiver and the top 3 or 5 in the league, you get yourself open, and no matter what quarterback's there, you're shocked if they can't find them sometimes. And last night, everything came off. Every time the ball got thrown by Minshew, it came off. It didn't ever look like throwing an interception, really. He played really smart last night.
Beisha, you left?
No, I've done my 2, I think, but just touching on I echo what you're saying there. I think it's great that he'll, watching that receiver program last year, he just looked such a frustrated figure, back end of his career, not on a good team. So that's a massive win against the Ravens. Hopefully they can take that and really go forward with it. The defense is there. Like you said, if Minshew can be serviceable and get him the ball, hopefully he has a better year.
My second one, just quickly, was to go with the same team. I did Marvin Harrison Jr., the guy throwing in the ball. Kyler Murray was my other star. If you took him in your draft, a bit of risk there, but it's a bit of a reward at the minute. He's so quick, so hard to sack, so elusive. Looking last night, not many better throwing on the run in the league than him. We saw Stroud do one last night late, unbelievable. Mahomes, we know what he can do on the run, but Kyler Murray, if he stays fit, you'd probably like to think he'll be a top 3 QB point scorer this year, the way he's playing at the minute. Looks outstanding. They've got the running game there with Connor as well. Trey McBride looks pretty good. So, yeah, another star from the Cardinals. And then you might hear a lot of them this year is the Kyler Murray and Harrison Jr. show.
I think the best thing about him that he's safe as well. You're not worried about them interceptions. Normally with the mobile quarterbacks, they have drop in your shoes, or they'll not throw the ball in smart areas because they rely on the feet rather than the brain, like Loster. But he's very safe for a quarterback as well, and I think that's what I love about him. That he'll go on these crazy runs, do these crazy passes, but you're never too worried about a 2-3 interception game from him, and I think that's what makes him one of them top caliber QBs.
Definitely. He had a spot. He threw a touchdown to a tight end, Higgins, and he had a spot where it was like watching a film, just players diving at his feet, stepping them. It was like they were in slow motion and they were in full speed. I think he beat 3 or 4 players, went out to his left, turned and just slung it into end zone for his tight end. So, yeah, he ran pretty much untouchable. And he had a perfect passer rating, actually, 158.3. So that's pretty impressive on its own.
On to the next bit, lads. The bit that we, as self-admittedly, we get the most views on, so we need to make sure we nail this bit. But it's the punt projects, we call it. It's the waiver wire pickups. Week 1, there wasn't too many. I think there weren't too many names out there yet. We're still trying to figure where things are out. We've got a better idea now. We've got some names for you. Don't miss. It's Tuesday nights, isn't it, Bish, that you have to set your waiver wires?
Yeah, Tuesday nights.
You'll find out on Wednesday morning whether you got them. Go invest in your fab like I did and get Isaiah Likely and have no money left for the rest of the year. Or you can be smart and invest wisely. But Tag, take us through your first waiver wire pickup.
I'm going to keep my waiver wire pickups QB themed and sticking to that just because there's 2 QBs on the waiver wire in the punt available. So I'll go with one of them first, and that's Sam Darnold. Obviously, with the injury of Tua, a lot of people will be starting him, and the question marks around some other QBs at the minute. Sam Darnold's still available in most leagues from what I can see and what I'm involved in. He looked good. Obviously, Justin Jefferson going down, we'll keep an eye on that and see how bad that is. But he played against the best defense in the NFL last night, and he had some really smart plays. He's still got the cannon of an arm. He hit 15 points last week. He hit over 20 points this week. So he's averaging out over 17 towards 18 points over the first 2 weeks, which is right up there in any league. So if you need a QB and you're looking obviously to replace a Tua, for instance, Sam Darnold should be near the top of your list with the other player will be coming to next time around.
Like it, yeah. Said I've always been a fan. No complaints from me.
I think he's fallen on his feet a little bit as well, because he spent some time at the 49ers, and Kevin O'Connell and the offensive coordinator, they're from the Rams, but obviously that's the Kyle Shanahan tree. So he's got the perfect system for him. He's got arguably the number one wide receiver in the NFL. So hopefully he flows with confidence and keeps finding his wide receiver.
I'll go next. I've got funny you said wide receiver. I've got one for the Chargers here that I think everyone doubted, wasn't convinced on. The last 2 weeks he's done all right, especially last night with 19.6 points. It's Quentin Johnson. 5 receptions, 6 targets, 2 touchdowns. Justin Herbert finally starting to get some sort of connection with him. Week 1 had 3 receptions on 38 yards. The good thing about him is it's got a good yard per catch, so he's going deep on he's going deeper on the ball. So when he gets the catches, he's getting the point. So you don't necessarily need to see them 9, 10 catch numbers. Yeah, I just like how he's finally starting to get some connection with Herbert, and if it carries on, there's not many other options. Obviously, Tag, you were very high last week on Lad McConkey. He's still a rookie, so naturally he's going to have his big weeks and his lower weeks into. I think for Quentin Johnson owners, Lad had his lower week on Sunday, but I think going forward, he's definitely someone you have to pick up, definitely someone you have to bench and just have on for that flex position when it goes against the likes of. When it goes like the Tennessee in the wide receiver room, you've got him, the Bengals. He's got a pretty good late season run that you can attack him on and hopefully get some points when there's more injuries and more people. You need more people, so as a stash and grab, you get him now, play him later, and hopefully by the end of the season, he's scoring a lot of points for you.
Yeah, it's a better pill for me to swallow on Johnson, because I loved him coming out of college and I took him in every league last year. Whenever I could get him in every league, I took him, rode him, and eventually just give up on him. Obviously, I understand Mike Williams injured, Keenan Allen leaving. I thought Ladd would be the main guy, and Quinton was that guy at weekend. Obviously, I don't have him in any team this year. I'm going to be still very stubborn and not take your advice, Joe, and not take him.
Bish, who's your wide receiver pickup, waiver wire pickup?
I'm coming with a running back, and it's for the Chiefs. It's Carson Steele. We missed him out earlier, but Isaiah Pacheco got bent backwards in the game and left the stadium on crutches and in a walking boot. So, I'm not sure, obviously, until we hear further from scans and x-rays and stuff, what state he's in. But Carson Steele raved about in the preseason. Actually, had some usage against the Bengals. I think he had 7 carries, did lose a fumble. But yeah, had 7 carries, was involved. So it's obviously Pacheco misses some time. Carson Steele looks like he could benefit from that. So he could be a nice one to pick up and be a sort of, just a plug in and play type of guy.
Looked explosive in his moments.
Yeah.
He got 2. Did he get 2 touchdowns, Bish, on the night, or just the one?
I think it was just one, wasn't it?
One, yeah, from memory.
But he looked explosive. He looked I'm with you. I think Pacheco's obviously this freak runner who runs with more effort than anyone I've ever seen. But Carson Steele had that explosion. Over about 5 or 6 steps, he got past his first defender nearly every time. So yeah, I think he'll definitely on that Chiefs offense. It's hard never to want to start a running back, knowing how many points there is to be shared around. Well, lads, we've only got one section left. It's obviously what the name's after. The punters, the best kicker of the week. Bish, what's your story for this week on the kickers?
My kicker of the week, and I think, if you two have got him, I apologise, but I'm going to steal him as I'm up first. But it's got to be the Commanders kicker, Austin Serbert. I might have botched up that pronunciation, I'm not sure. But 22 points, kicked 7 out of 7 field goals. In fact, it was all the Commanders' points and got them the win. So, it's a rookie. he wins the game. What more can you ask for from your kicker? So 7 out of 7. If you had him in fantasy, I'm looking at some of these kickers' numbers, and they're racking up some 20 plus points, 15 plus points, which is more than definitely more than tight ends, pushing wide receivers. So if you manage to land a good kicker, it looks like you're on a good path to winning a week.
Since QBs can't score any touchdowns this year so far.
Yeah.
A lot of field goals, a lot too many field goals going around. But I've got my ones based on not his numbers, but obviously his game-winning field goal. I'm going Harrison Butker. We give the kickers plenty of time on this show. Harrison Butker, 51 yards for the win. Kansas City. If you listen to the commentators or anyone around, they could have even gone for more. They could have let Mahomes go for more yardage, but they weren't worried. 50 yards for most kickers in previous years would be a very tough kick. You'd be nervous. You'd be trying to scrape any more yardage out of it as you can. Harrison Butker, they settled for the 51 yards. Knew it was 100% going over, and he nailed it, to be fair to him. Got them the win against the Cincinnati Bengals in a game they should have lost, and Butker, the hero of the evening.
For me, I'm same as you, Bish. I'm all in on the Commanders guy when the kicker's winning you the game. But I will give a little shout out, a personal favourite of my kicker of the week, Will Lutz, the kicker for the Denver Broncos. The only one who looks like he's going to score points for us this year. He made sure we didn't get him done against our name. So I'm going to ride Lutz all year. He's my favourite Denver player now. He's the only one who looks like he's going to do out this year.
Shirt coming.
The legs, Lutz. Come on, son.
Brilliant, lads. Well, yeah, please like, subscribe. It's been a good week. Very interesting fantasy week. We learned lots, and I think going forward now we can start to get some with him on the bets on the fantasy and figure out who's going to have them big weeks. So yeah, thank you, lads, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Yeah.